This podcast is dedicated to sharing the practice of meditation, the philosophy of Western Buddhism, and the refuge and love of our TBC Sangha. Offering solutions that are simple, practical, and true. We believe happiness and better health are available to all people and for all people. We are here each week to lend wisdom and support to all who are making or considering making this journey. This is On the Range. Welcome to episode number 12 of Om on the Range. I'm your host. My name is Whit, and I am pleased to be here. I'm pleased that you're here, and I'm very pleased to have Victor Dougherty join us again for episode 12 as the co-host. Welcome, Victor.
Hi, Whit. Thank you so much for having me on, and thank you for what you're doing. I think this is a time period when people utilize this medium a lot more, and what we're sharing with them is very helpful and useful in their daily life. So thank you for what you're doing.
Victor, you were with us 5 weeks ago. You've been very gracious with your time. You've been a big supporter of the podcast. Really, you're just a big supporter of positive efforts by everyone, and I really appreciate that. But you're the director of the Temple Buddhist Center, which a role is very wide in scope, and it's challenging to describe because you're the leader, you're the teacher, you're the quarterback, the coach, you're the face of the operation. Which of those roles do you enjoy the most?
Well, that's a fascinating question, and it's interesting because back in 2017, when I was on sabbatical from public education, I taught high school for about 22 years. So when I was on sabbatical and I was kind of around, I was doing a little chanting group and a little men's group and a little meditation classes. TBC was still going, but it was, had very much kind of twilighted and was really not doing very well. The community and the senior minister at Unity Temple pulled me into the office one day, a couple of the community leaders and the senior minister, and they said, Victor, we want to go in a new direction with a new director, and we think you're the person for the job. And I remember going back to my teacher, Ben Worth, who, by the way, started ABC, or the American Buddhist Center, back in 1996. And I was freaking out. I was like, Ben, they want me to lead the Sangha. I'm not ready for that. And Ben looked at me with a big grin on his face, and he goes, Victor, do you know how you know you are ready? And I like, well, no. And he goes, because they asked you. So, from that day on, I decided to let go of a solid career with regular pay and really good benefits to live on donations. And it was only after about the first 3 months, it didn't take long at all, the first 2 or 3 months, that I realized that my whole life, everything that had ever happened to me, were all preparing me for this. And so now I could not imagine doing anything else. And yes, I have all these different hats that I wear, but I think the key to it is maybe it's not so much about which ones do I enjoy the most, because I enjoy aspects of all of them. I think the key is that there is no leader or teacher of any spiritual community that can take the community any place that he or she themselves has not gone. And so as I continue to deepen my practice, deepen my understanding of the Dharma, then I am able to maintain the ability to put on those hats. And all the other experiences of my life, I directed high school musicals for 20 years. That ability to create community within those students, to provide jobs and roles and then guide them. Isn't it fascinating how all of that is playing out again now, but in a different context? So life has been sharpening me, has been honing me my whole life to be able to do what I'm doing right now. And again, the only reason why I can do these things is because I rely more and more and more on the community itself to help me. I mean, we're a sangha. It's really more of a round table. There's no one sitting at the head of it because there isn't a head. It's more of a round table. So I am blessed every day with people like you doing this. This helps our community. This brings our community together. Like what Liz does with our social media, what Pam does with our outreach. So it is just become its own entity, and I literally am just enjoying the ride and trying to help everybody remember our spiritual roots, that the sacred comes before, the corporate, so to speak.
Right. So you hit on a lot of things there, but I was really drawn to that statement about how your practice has helped sharpen you for this opportunity.
Yeah.
So I think back with your career, putting on High School Musicals, and I know it was much more than just that, but just that practice coupled with your practice, allows you to kind of bloom and kind of fill a bigger space. And
Yeah.
I think just from being around you, there's a relaxed compassion that you bring to these projects, even ones that are like this podcast that maybe wasn't necessarily thought out very far, but understood that, hey, we have a message, we have something we want to share. We're passionate about this. We're passionate about compassion.
Yeah.
So I think it's interesting how what you bring to all these different uh, opportunities and teams that are trying to support you
Yeah.
in turn support them, and there's a beautiful circle to that, to what's being done, that momentum.
Well, and you also bring up a point, which is not unlike the talk last Sunday regarding power versus force. There was a time in my life, Wit, when all of my projects, no matter what it was, I was using force to try to get them to be successful, to move to the next point. And all that did was create just a ton of problems because I would be short with people because they weren't doing what I needed them to do, because we got to get there. We got to strive. We have to effort, no pain, no gain, right? And so my practice informs all of this now, because now that relaxed, compassionate, maybe mood or modality that you spoke of is really, you're absolutely right, because now I don't need anything within TBC to happen or just to move forward or achieve a goal, because what I've learned over the years, and especially through the practice, is that if this is the right time, if the causes and the conditions are just right for something, it will happen, and I don't have to do anything. I can love it, I can support it, whether it's waxing or waning, right? Because maybe not now, but maybe next year. Or if it's been going for the past 3 years and now it's kind of ending, that's okay too. I don't need to save, fix, repair anything. If the causes and conditions are just right, it will flourish. And obviously the causes and the conditions are just right for Temple Buddhist Center, because we continue to have no less than 5 to 10 brand new people every Sunday. And I know that because I walk around and I meet people and they're like, this is my first time. And I'm like, well, welcome home.
You ever tell them it's your first time too, and then go up front, lead it?
Yeah, exactly.
So you just sit on it, on the how TBC continues to grow, and how the Sangha supports anyone interested in Buddhism and Western Buddhism and meditation. But with everything that's going on right now, with the service, events, trends, whatever you want to call it, what are you
Right.
most pleased and or concerned about in terms of where it's going?
Oh, well, I mean, right off the bat, the community. I have members coming to me in tears because they just got furloughed or they just lost their job or their husband no longer has work. And a lot of this is due to the changes that are occurring at such not only a rapid pace, but their intensity is also growing. It's the intensity of all of it, whether it's the time or it's the nature of what it is. It's all very intense. And so my first concern is right away the members of our Sangha, our community. Not only is our community hurting, but our entire society is hurting. And so anything and everything that we can do to try to be a loving, kind, compassionate presence for our community, that's up front. That's on the forefront now.
I think it's interesting that a lot of people feel like there's more suffering in their life. And some of it can be traced to just the current environment that we live in.
Yep.
Some of it is also the technology that we utilize. It's not good or bad, but we have a tendency to overuse it, become dependent upon it. There is a lot of fear, but I think it's interesting that as people feel more suffering, they're also more open to looking for ways to better understand and deal with that, ways to lessen that pressure. And that's where TBC in particular,
yeah,
and Western Buddhism in general, I think really comes in because, as you said, Buddhism always shows up as never as a conqueror, but always as a pilgrim. And so it's flexible and it's welcoming, and you don't have to be, you don't have to look a certain way. You don't have to, you really don't even have to believe a certain thing other than, hey, show up, be authentic.
Yeah.
And then, maybe open your heart as best you can and be with what you feel.
Absolutely. That's exactly right. Buddhism doesn't proselytize. It's funny because one of my teachers, I'm not worried. Number one, worry wouldn't help anything. Number two, people will come when they are ready. They will try out different religions or different practices or different traditions. And if it works for them, yay. Isn't that what we all want? We want people to be happy and to find guidance and connection. So if they find it over there, then yay, I'm happy for them. If they don't find it there, then they will continue seeking, which will eventually, they'll stop by and check out Temple Buddhist Center. So there's really nothing to worry about, on one level there's a saying in Buddhism, which is no snowflake ever fell in the wrong spot. And that's kind of a nod towards the fact that honestly, there isn't really anything wrong. I'm not saying there aren't things that are painful, things that are challenging and difficult, but they're not wrong. And another way to look at that is we're all on the path to awakening. Some of us will do it in this lifetime, some of them maybe 20 lifetimes down the road. Relax. What are you worried about? We're all going to eventually find reunion with consciousness. So just enjoy the ride.
And I take a lot of comfort and trying to remember that there are no mistakes. There are things to learn, and there's certainly pain. The question is, do you want to suffer or do you want to experience that pain and learn from it and move on? I also really enjoy the idea that, hey, maybe next lifetime I'll get that, or maybe a couple from now, and you don't have to buy in to what happens afterwards. But it doesn't matter what you believe or what you think to be true. You should still enjoy this because this is where we are right now, right? It's all about being present.
Yes.
And anything else is a waste of effort and waste of time, and you can't be authentic if you're in the if your head's in the future or worried about the past. We need the real, true you, and that's the one that lives right here, breath to breath. Yeah,
you've never done anything in the past, and you've never done anything in the future. The only time you've ever done anything is in the present moment, and it's always like that. Worry is just an abuse of imagination. And to the degree that you have a vivid, active imagination, can provide a tremendous amount of suffering for some folks because their
Right.
imagination's imagining either what something's going to be like, or their imagination is recreating the past and coloring even that. That's not really what happened, but the imagination's going to make it much more interesting because the egoic mind is bored.
Right. Right. I think we talk about TBC and the Sangha, certainly. We talk about Western Buddhism and we talk about meditation. And I think it's so interesting where all of those things kind of intersect. By that I mean that you don't have to be a Buddhist to practice meditation. And
Right.
you really don't have to practice meditation, I suppose, to be a Buddhist, although we certainly see some strengths in having both. But
Yeah.
when you practice, you're sitting there in the present moment and you're not judging and you're not trying to fix anything. So there's that, you're practicing awareness, you're anchored to your breath, you're using some sort of anchor point probably, and you're accepting whatever you find because you're not trying to fix it, and you're not trying to judge it. And so no matter how much you practice, you're pulling yourself into the present moment, and Buddhism is all about living in the present moment. It's almost like you start one and you find the other, and they support. They're not exactly the same thing, but they're so intertwined.
Yeah.
It's here's my Buddhist slogan for the week. It's they're this different side of the same coin
Yeah.
almost.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's just really kind of another way of saying that not only is your life your practice, so it's like, why is everybody working so hard to practice?
Right.
Your life is your practice. Just relax into your life, enjoy, and naturally things are going to come up. Things that break your heart, things that fill your heart. And
Right.
in the same way, we think that we're sitting down on the cushion to meditate. And at first, that is what we're doing, and then we realize that, oh, wait, meditation is actually not a doing. It's simply cultivating being. And then as you mature spiritually, you begin to realize that, wait a minute, there's never a time when I'm not meditating. It's all a big meditation. The whole thing. That's another way of saying your life is your practice. And so everything becomes, a meditation, an opportunity to awaken, an opportunity to serve awakening, so to speak.
We talked earlier about how when the time is right, things naturally happen.
Yeah.
And I love I have a statue of I don't know if it's a Buddha or it's a child who is dressed as a monk, and he's holding the beggar's bowl. And the message to me is always, just be there, be present, and see what ends up in your bowl. Accept whatever you get,
Yeah.
and instead of judging it, and suffering for it, just accept it and understand that, hey, that's going to change. Nothing's permanent. But I
That's right.
love that little statue metaphor guy. So
Yeah. I agree.
uh,
I do too. It really is. It's a little metaphor for life, isn't it?
yeah, just be there with it, and there's your practice. There's your life. Being is enough. We don't think of it that way. It's not the way we were brought up. So, but I mean,
Right.
just if you can just concentrate on that, you start to realize that, hey, that is the life. That is a
Yeah.
life with so much less suffering,
Yeah.
and
And
enough is going to happen in that bowl in front of you that's where you want to be.
yeah.
Um, and I also think that whole understanding that being is enough is also kind of the strength behind Western Buddhism, because
Yeah.
it's a tough thing to learn, and we work with it every day because, again, not how we were brought up, not in our culture per se, but we do understand, hey, personal responsibility, and hey, less suffering means more happiness, and less suffering
Right.
means better health. And it feels so great to be responsible for your spiritual practice and your spiritual being.
Right. And not only were we not brought up with that, but almost every day within our Western society or culture, we're bombarded with the opposite message. I mean, there's not a single commercial or billboard or uh, advertisement on TV or radio that says you're perfect, You are a beautiful expression of consciousness, and there is nothing you need. Every
Right.
single one of them is bludgeoning with you with how imperfect you are, and you are not whole until you buy this. Then you can be happy.
Yeah. And it's such a dangerous message, and I understand why. But
Yeah.
I love it when we start on a topic and it goes way off course, and then we kind of circles back. But you were talking at the beginning of the podcast again about what was going on at TBC and how these things flower on their own. And one of the things that, because we trust the power and not the force, is that right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Thought I
Yeah.
got that backwards for a minute. That, I've heard you say many times about how this is not a quid pro quo type thing. We're
Right.
not doing something. We're not trying to be good people so we can go to heaven. Not to pick on anybody who believes that, but that's a good example. We're not really modifying our behavior other than listening to our heart and being authentic, because that's who, the Buddha is in each one of us. And all we got to do is find that. But it's so good with all of these other things that TBC takes on, because we don't do it to convert people to Buddhism. We don't get it to raise our numbers. We don't get it to make money. This isn't a power grab. We don't have a bottom line. We're doing this to offer it because we think it helps, because we know it helps, and it's like there's people that are suffering. Here's a way to share this as a solution. And by the way, if nothing else, your health will be better. Your health will be better. You'll feel better. That's
exactly. Well, and there is also a recognition sort of the process there, which is most people come to any spiritual practice or tradition in crisis, right? Their life has fallen apart, everything has gone to hell in a handbasket, and they are brought to their knees. This is that sweet or sacred surrender where they change, they start asking bigger questions, and they start looking in different places. Because up until now, the question they ask is, when am I going to make more money for this? Or the places they were looking were always external and outside of them. So they come to any spiritual tradition or community in crisis. They're hurting. There's tremendous amount of suffering and pain. And at first, they are trying to relieve, right? They're trying to relieve, make it stop. This is, I'm in so much pain, and my life is just really just so, there's so much suffering. And so they come to the practice at first because they're hurting. And this is this is kind of what suffering is for. This is its job. It has an incredible purpose in life, in the same way that if you felt a pain, on your arm, and you look down and you see a splinter, well, the body's trying to tell you something. It's not a bad thing. It's not evil. It's not wrong. And in the same way, we suffer because we've been putting everything in the external world to make us happy. And unfortunately, there is nothing in the external world that can bring us lasting happiness. It will always disappoint because it is impermanent. So in the same way that it does that, we come to the practice hurting, in pain, trying to find relief and to make it stop. But over time, as our hearts flower and our practice blossoms, and we realize that, there never was someone suffering, and suffering is just something that is a part of life, and that it's completely optional. And then we realize our true nature, then the whole thing does a 180 and shifts. And now everything I do in service of awakening for all beings, because I want them to know and understand the spaciousness that I have found, the relief, that slow undertone, that mild low undertone of joy that has replaced the undertone of fear. And we all are experiencing that, and it's natural for us to want everybody else to experience that, but we don't have to proselytize, because we know that doesn't work. People will only come when they are ready to proselytize.
Snowflakes will only fall where they're supposed to.
Yep. Yep, exactly.
Sorry
The
about
other
interrupting.
the
I
other
want to
old
show
sa-
listening.
yeah, the other old saying is that when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. But only in that situation. You can't just show up and say, "I'm your teacher."
Right.
Let's get to
Which,
work.
which again
Doesn't work.
is something else to love about this whole journey is just how
Yeah.
natural and how it
Yeah.
happens when it happens. It blooms when it blooms. And it never, it's impermanent, just like everything else, I suppose, but you never really reach an end either. And it's certainly,
Right. Yeah.
there's always something, kind of to work with. And it's not because, oh, that's bad, I got to fix it. It's not that. It's just like, oh, what is that? You become curious and less
Yeah.
fearful of whatever that feeling is or whatever, as maybe triggered's probably too strong a word. But yeah, I love that about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I want to change course for just a minute, give you a chance to
Sure.
talk about your Dharma talk you gave last week. It was your teaching regarding power, force.
Mhm.
It was incredibly timely, incredibly well delivered. I think it really hit home for the room. Is it fair to ask you to give a 2-minute overview, or what was most important to that talk for you?
Sure. Yeah. I'll just jump in. Just a little brief thing. Of course, the talk, power versus force, was based on the iconic works of David Hawkins, who wrote the book Power versus Force. And in that book, he talks about helping us to understand that power is the alignment of our thoughts and actions with our highest values and principles. And that power is characterized by feelings of love, connection, joy, peace. And this is kind of what you alluded to a minute ago. You talked about it's crazy because, like with TBC, there's impermanence, and yet it doesn't seem like the practice ever ends. So we don't, in a weird way, we don't experience the impermanence. And that's because when you're working in that realm of the power part of it, then we become our own little factories for joy. We become these generators of joy. But if you're stuck in force, then you're waiting for the world to bring you joy, and you'll wait a long time, and then you'll get bitter because it never did, which then Hawkins goes on to explain force. Force, on the other hand, is the use of manipulation or coercion to get what we want. And that is associated with negative emotions such as fear, anger, clinging, aggression. And so the talk was kind of a lot along those lines. In Buddhism, it is known as samavayama, or wise effort. So we take a look at the efforting that is there and see within wise effort, it recognizes that force is not evil, it's not bad. See, isn't it funny how in Buddhism we don't ever make anything wrong, evil, or bad, because we recognize that it has a purpose or a usefulness when it is balanced. So for example, force is needed in small doses. Force is necessary in these little tiny small doses because you cannot get power without first using some force. So, for example, imagine this. I mean, just the force that it takes to get you to sit for 20 minutes a day, right? There's a little bit of self-discipline there. There's a little bit of, come on, Victor, I know you'd like to run down to the store or cruise Amazon or play a video game, but let's sit. Come on, let's do it. Let's sit, Victor. So there's
Right.
a little bit of force, a bit of nudging, right? And then when you do sit and you open, all of a sudden here comes this spacious, vast openness in which you begin to see the nature of your mind, and there's a feeling of connection. That's when the power kicks in. So you see, a little bit of force is necessary to actually begin to open the doors to power itself and to experience that power. And then, so I talked a lot about that on Sunday. And then I kind of sort of wrapped up the talk itself by talking about how with compassion, fatigue, or compassion overwhelm, this thing that a lot of practitioners talk about, where I'm just bombarded every day by so much suffering, and with our hearts open, we can be very, very raw. So to really engage some of ayama or wise effort, um, that helps us to cultivate our compassion and our empathic sensitivity. So here's what I mean by that, and then I'll wrap up. Empathic overwhelm diminishes our capacity to act wisely and from the whole self. Too often, the empathic sensitive person loses sight of self-care and succumbs to the overwhelming urge to help everyone or to hold everyone in our hearts. So we learn to dial that down, to back it off. So whether you are meditating on peace or marching for it, whatever you do is the best you can do at that moment. And so let that be enough today, and allow yourself to become sensitive to the power, also its limits, right? When that power is exhausted, back away. Because the compassionate heart, when it's leading the way, connection occurs through that coherent unity of all the compassionate hearts. That's where we find power, not force. The collective heart has space for navigating the poignant and the painful. So we can then contribute without depletion and without overwhelm, because we're coming from a place of power, not force. Is that helpful?
Yeah, absolutely. You did a really nice job.
We're tapping a different well. If we're always tapping the well of force, where I'm writing these angry letters to my senators, and I'm writing an angry check to send off to some cause, and I'm mad because there's bad people doing bad things. Now you're caught up in the world of force, and you're not seeing the big picture. There's always been construction and destruction on this planet. And power helps us understand that this is a natural occurrence of impermanence. Things are born, things are die. When causes and conditions are just right, something will happen. When causes and conditions are just right, that something will maintain. But at some point, the causes and the conditions go away. And then that thing that we love so much, maybe it's democracy, begins to struggle and begins to fall away. And if we stay in our power, we'll realize that we all have the opportunity now to build something maybe a little bit different, maybe a little bit more loving, a little bit more caring and compassionate, maybe something a little bit more steward-like, you know? So
Sure.
we work for that, just like we always have.
And the only thing I would add to that, and thank you so much, because I know that was a challenge. It's a big topic, and it's
Oh,
difficult
yeah.
to get. For me, what I've noticed is that when you're working and you're trying to utilize a lot of force, it feels uncomfortable. It's the
Yeah.
coercion, it's I don't know, whatever tool you're using
Yeah.
to get something else. If there's an outcome that you're trying to get to other than just the actual task in hand, it's probably
Yeah.
force. And if it's power, it tends to feel natural and welcoming. And again, I really
Yes.
appreciate you explaining that, putting it into perspective. So I think at this time, Victor, first of all, I just want to thank you for making time and supporting the podcast. You were huge in getting it off the ground. You're an excellent leader. I thank you for your wisdom. I'm most thankful for your friendship, because I can always come to you, and you
Right
have
on.
a great understanding of where people are and where they want to go. So thank you very much, and I can't wait to see what happens with TBC and Western Buddhism with you driving it. I also want to remind our listeners that you can find us on Spotify, Facebook, and the TBC Discord channel. We drop new episodes every Friday. You can also leave comments and questions there as well. And we can be reached via email at omontheRangePodcast@gmail.com. Thank you for joining us. This is Om on the Range, wishing you happy trails.
Thank you to Mr. Tim Behrens for producing this episode, and thank you to Brad Athey for providing the music. And thank you to our listeners for joining us on this journey as we discuss meditation and Western Buddhism and celebrate the path to a happier and healthier life. Less suffering and more joy are available to all people. While we cannot control what happens to us, we can control how we react. It just takes practice. Until next time, stay grounded and find peace in the simple, practical solutions. This is Om on the Range, wishing you happy trails.